drastically.
We'll have to see if that
You bring
works.
them down to 1. You go heavy assassin, you bring someone out, and you get rid of that lane. I don't run any pro teams.
Yeah.
Like
So the computer has almost been swapped out for Zion Spartan. We will be getting back into this COG, GGU Team Coast game.
Team Coast.
We're thinking about the past. Last split, it was GGU. Now they are Team Coast. COG has always been COG.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
The oldest
They are
team.
the oldest team left.
Yep.
Because they predate
In
TSM.
League of Legends.
Yes, in League of Legends. I mean, there's certainly like the very old organizations like SK Gaming, like Fnatic, who have been around pretty much for the history of esports, and it's great to see them involved in League of Legends, right? And I always like seeing that. So I always like seeing when a new organization shows up as well. When you're like, oh man, Navi picked up a team. You're like, oh man, like teams that you recognize by being a fan of esports. It's fun to see them picked up. At the same time, it's really cool to see the self-made brands. You see the Counterlogic Gamings and the Team Solo Mids be like, yeah, we're completely on par with sort of like the old teams. We've cultivated our talent. We've grown our scene. We've grown our fanship, our fandom. Like, yeah, we're CLG. Like, we're the OG League of Legends team, and it's legitimate. And I love seeing that. And
it's all going to come together in the playoffs, in the World Playoffs. But specifically, I'm worried about Zion Spartan in this game, actually.
Okay.
Because he is already the one who's been struggling for Coast. He's 2-12 when he doesn't have Riven. And now he's the one who's dealing with these unfortunate technical problems. Like, obviously everyone has to wait, but he's trying to think about the game right now, but he's mainly worried about his gaming rig feeling right to him. And it's going to be difficult coming back into this game. You know, it's like players that aren't good at playing in the rain sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I know a golfer, Lee Trevino, would walk off the course if he saw clouds. He would just quit the tournament because he'd been struck by lightning before, and he was like,
oh my God.
He was paranoid about it, super paranoid. So he would lose multiple gaming tournaments because like his feelings weren't right in here.
Jeez.
And you know, I don't think Zion Spartan's going to walk off because his computer's getting restarted, but things can throw you.
There's a scuff on the right side of this this desktop right here. I've been hit by Splinter before, and I can't play this tournament anymore.
I got a splinter right in between my fingernails.
Oh, that would suck.
Yeah,
that would suck a lot. I've never done that, thankfully. But actually, one thing I do want to point out, though, our awesome like Riot like tools developers, whatever, I don't know how to actually call them. We actually have this tool on the machines here where it actually saves your key binding profiles, and you basically click a button, you say I'm Zion Spartan, and it replaces all the entire config file in League of Legends. So his mouse sensitivity and video settings and sound settings and key bindings are actually all pre-populated, so it's nice. It saves a little bit of the time. We've just been told we have about 5 minutes left until he's ready to go.
Let's get back to the big discussion.
Back to the big discussions. Okay, so I want to talk about though that Season 2 European scene. Go back to the Counterlogic Gaming Europe versus Moscow 5 big rivalry. M5 tended to win a lot of them. Okay. Right? They invented the heavy counter jungling, the Shyvana, the Gangplank, running in. A mid laner would always push. Galio, Morgana, Cassiopeia, and Mordekaiser were really big for a while.
The pushing mid laner, and then the roam for, at least that's Moscow 5.
Yeah, it was shove the lanes. Everyone could participate in counter jungling. You get guys who are very strong early on, guys like Gangplank, guys like, I'm trying to remember the other good top laners that Darien used to use back then.
Yeah, it was mainly Gangplank.
Yeah. And you had anyway, but it was guys who could fight early on, like Lee Sin was another big one there. Just early game power, steal all the buffs, had this huge gold lead, and it wasn't because you were taking turrets down by having 2-on-1 and 3-on-1 lanes. It was, we'll steal your jungle and we'll 3-on-1 your jungler. And they were able to keep making all these moves, whereas Counterlogic Gaming Europe, now Evil Geniuses, was a very different style. They were hold our lanes up, pick late game scaling. You might take our jungle, you might have a 5,000 gold lead on us, but you can't take our buildings down.
Get their farm.
Yeah, like we have a Kog'Maw and a Nivea's wave clearing.
Yeah.
At some point, we win the game against you.
And what was so fascinating about Season 2, COG EU, for those of you wondering, was Evil Geniuses now in the European scene. They still have all of the same players in some form on their roster, because Snoopy's kind of doing the bench and not bench thing right now for them. And they were the European equivalent of what Counterlogic Gaming NA was kind of in Season 1, where they only cared about their farm because they recognized if they made it to late game, they would be able to overpower a team. But their fatal flaw, though, was their inability to adapt to the really good teams. Because they were, I have to say, like, COG EU last season was the most consistent team in the world. Every tournament, they'd be between second. I mean, there was that one they won.
They won DreamHack.
At DreamHack. But they'd be between second and fourth because they could beat everyone except, like, the next tier of teams, which was generally Moscow 5, who's now Gambit Gaming, again and again.
Yeah.
And it was really crazy to watch, where it kind of showed you that if you need to be at the top level of this game, you need diversified strategies.
And this was actually interesting because this is something that, there's 2 points here actually. So you have a team that's at the very top, like A tier, S tier, but plays exactly one style, right? The Cloud9 right now that we've seen, Counterlogic Gaming Europe from Season 2, and to bring up an earlier example, Azubu Blaze, who are like Flame split pushes, and they play split push, and Flame gets huge. And the litmus test for are you an S tier team, are you a top team, this team will do exactly one strategy. Can you beat it? Can you strategize against certain teams and do your research? And for the example of MVP Ozone, they 3-0'd and did it. For the example of Moscow 5 back then, of course now Gambit Gaming, they found a way to do it. They got a bunch of early Guardian Angels and would tower dive you at 25 minutes and was like,
before they were ready.
Exactly. We can just hardcore dive you. We got it. We got it. We can do this. And so they found the strategic adaptations or tactical adaptations to do it. And so here we go, NA scene or you know, any team that gets up there, here's the change we make to get ourselves in there.
And that's what Cloud9 has to worry about as they approach North American playoffs and actually World playoffs as well, because, as we mentioned earlier, they are playing mostly the same game, and they are the bar right now for the top North American team, because no one's actually been able to leapfrog them. And the real question is, who's going to craft a strategy to beat them? Because they're actually fairly scoutable right now at an international level.
Yeah.
And because of how much they've differentiated themselves, this is Cloud9, from the rest of the North American scene, all the international powerhouses that are going to be coming to Worlds, assuming Cloud9 makes it from the playoffs, they're going to be targeting Cloud9 first and foremost for North America. And they got to be ready for that. I imagine Cloud9 is ready for that because they've had Alex Penn as their coach and analyst this entire split. Lemon Nation is like a coach on the field for them because with all his theory crafting, so they should be ready for that. But to me, if I was in Cloud9 shoes, that would be my number one concern, is having a response to the first thing that beats you, because it's going to happen eventually.
And that's a good point, because they, back at the beginning of the split, they talked about who they looked to for inspiration, the teams they looked at, and they said, we watch all the Korean games, and they're implying that Korea is like the strongest region. Like, we look at their champions, look at their strategies. And Korea I actually like because they've got a lot of top-level teams that play a lot of different styles. You've got the Azubu Blaze who split push all the time. You've got teams that go for these sort of pick compositions where you have like Ari or Nocturne or a lot of Thresh Reliance as well, where you create movement and then just catch someone out in the jungle, and then you use that to kind of snowball forward and make other moves. And so if they're continuing to do their research, which I assume they are, they've got all these different styles to look at and learn from and play from. There's actually a lot of dominant strategies, different complete options in League of Legends.
Yeah, and it's about finding the style that works best for a team, because I've never seen, I mean, some of the good teams, like Gambit Gaming when they're at the top, I'd always say like MVP Ozone right now in the Korean scene, play in a lot of different ways. The computer swap, by the way, for Zion Spartan, this is CLG versus Coast, should be done very shortly here, and we will be able to get this game underway shortly.
Yes, we'll be there very, very soon. You got the last little lean in right here. I'm trying to make out the iconography on his desktop. I couldn't quite tell if that was the scoreboard at the top of the screen, but Zion on his way back in. And so you were talking about teams, how many strategies they can play that fit their play style.
Yes,
Cloud9,
it's hard.
It is. It's very difficult to play a lot of different styles. Cloud9 says they have very good team synergy. They're always on the same page. They like to fight. So the aggressive teams, the pushing teams, the let's brawl, Medius is going to initiate teams, those tend to work, and especially when they are able to trust their initiators and trust the callers, it's easier to be on the same page.
And to get back to this game a little bit, since hopefully we're going to be back into it, we can try to loop in our discussion a bit here. CLG is in that process kind of slowly, but they don't have much time before Worlds. They recently hired Monte Cristo as a coach, so they don't have much time to remake their game. It would seem, though, that they're then going to keep running mostly the same strategies they have with only small tweaks, because you can't completely build the strategy in a couple weeks and have it be world-class. So CLG, we know what team they are.
Yes.
Everyone knows what team they are. It's about tweaking things so that teams can't exploit CLG's late-game weakness.
Yeah, so here we go, guys. 3 seconds to go until the pause is through. We are unpaused, and the game is afoot. Here we go, guys. Chester and Nian trying to defend that top side turret. We had 3-on-1 lanes. We had the outer turrets for the right and left-hand side lanes go down. And here it's time for the adaptation for these guys. Coast making a move towards the mid lane. The 4-on-1 on Link.
Yeah, and they have had a lot of time to think about this. No time to talk about it, though, because they're not allowed to speak during that 20-plus minute pause. And they have to restart themselves here. There's only been a trade in this game so far. It's starting, essentially, at 5 minutes.
And here we go. It's going to be the Jarvan defending as well. And, of course, remember at the same time that Doublelift is still keeping Zion Spartan company on the left-hand side. So Double's actually going to leave right here with 33 minion kills. We'll see him make his early purchases. Vamp Scepter, all right. And the early buys have come in now. So, all right, very equal game right here. We talked about this, right? One turret down on each side, no kills on each side. Gold 100 apart, and we have a new reality here. We have a game that's pretty much reset. Lanes can do what they want. Zion could freeze and wait till level 6. A lot of options open for these teams.
Yeah, and they... I've heard as well just now from our producer that they were allowed to talk after about the first 6 or 7 minutes of the pause.
Oh.
So it wasn't just, let's see who can remember our strategy for the longest in the situation in the game. At least they'll have a bit of plans for that. We got to reset ourselves, too, to this game. So it's...
Koreans. No.
It's now about... No, definitely not. It's now about Zion Spartan catching up in his farm.
Gets done.
And the rest of Coast working it.
Look at that charm as well. Link the flash forward. First blood, don't mash me. Every skill shot landed there. Coast, wonderful job.
And Coast is actually roaming around a lot right now as a squad of 4. That was the second aggressive mid lane tower dive. It actually looks like they're trying to shut down Link right now in CLG's strategy as Zion Spartan catches up.
Here we go, though. The wave through, though, from CLG really stopping all that. Even Double's been sort of brought in there with that lantern. So Coast trying to do a bit of pushing, though no one's taking the right-hand side lane farm. Charmland with a challenge. Holy crap, the damage output. Would you believe that one? Mashed me with 2 kills early on.
And we got to remember, this is 4 Coast members in the mid lane with the ability to chain crowd controls with each other. If they get a Charm, Bubble, or an Nintendo X Cocoon, they just chain 1 to 2 to 3 and get the kills. That's very dangerous for COG when they're trying to counter siege, and they've lost 2 kills because of it.
Really beautiful stuff there. A huge gold spike coming in there. Even though he's down 7 minion kills, you know don't mash me. He's got more gold than Doublelift right here. And Zion, look at the top laners. Zion's level 6. He was soloing that whole time. And the end is still 4. I assume he's close. Hey, he leveled. Great. He was close to leveling. But a clear advantage here for Zion. He's going to really enjoy that.
And this means farm time for COG. Specifically when Zion Spartan hits level 6, the ability for COG to initiate fights safely goes way down.
There's actually something I want to point out as well is a lot of people tend to use like the Shen Stand United as an opportunity to push his turret down, but that turret's already down, so Nien has nowhere to go.
He's just going to farm. He's going to farm.
He is going to farm. Yeah.
As best he can.
Nice.
He needs to get a lot of farm on that Zac in order to create enough of a frontline like sustaining fight for COG, since they're going to be most likely going for the high utility outmaneuverability with their overall team comp.
We'll see if they can bring this one out right here. Don't Mash Me, though, has a beautifully frozen lane right here. And we'll see him probably, I feel like he's going to skyrocket in minion kills as the minions keep flooding into him and his waves just keep dying out right here. We'll see if Doublelift can catch up. We talked in the pregame about how CLG just have always had a rough time in the bottom lane against Team Coast. Only 5 kills for Doublelift. Don't Mash Me's been huge overall, and that might just still be happening.
And it's weird because they're not even really laning against each other. Don't Mash Me got the lanes because Coast as a team was able to pick out COG just in middle as they were grouping up. Doublelift was actually ahead in farm to Don't Mash Me, and he needs his team to help him as always. That's the reason Doublelift has the most kills as well in the LCS. As well, he can out-farm most other AD carries straight up. It's the later game farm where he really gets going.
And speaking of getting going, Nien is actually trying to put some pressure onto Zion Spartan right there. A lot of sustain on Zac keeps him pretty safe. So we'll see if Doublelift can get going. He's now pretty much tied in minion kills to Mash Me, 70 to 72. Mash Me going for the early Blade of the Ruined King. You're seeing that get partially completed for him, but the lane is now starting to push back. So pretty soon CLG will get to play that farm game. So my question is then, because CLG wants to play so late game, do Coast keep trying to make moves then, control dragons and turrets and whatnot?
I'm not sure, actually.
Okay.
I think Coast is still deciding that themselves. They need to figure out how much confidence they have in their own late game ability. Because if I look at CLG's composition, I don't want to go late game against that necessarily. So it does seem as if once Shifter gets a little bit more breathing room in the mid lane, he should look to move around and force the objectives, because yeah, that's going to be the mindset that Coast is in for this game. They have to do that Gambit Gaming versus EG, where they beat them faster than COG can farm up.
They're looking for it right here, though. They had 1,000 gold lead. That's going to be 2,000 gold. Well, 1,800 to be technically accurate here as they take down the Dragon, and no contest at all there. Zion Spartan, the blue ward there, or sorry, the pink ward there to keep the vision away from CLG. The Zion Spartan split push there, and Shifter is able to hold up in minion kills so far. So because a lot of that early game pressure, he's actually keeping up to Link in minion kills.
Yes.
Their 80 carries keeping up as well. Heck, actually, everyone has good minion kills here for Coast.
They're doing a very good job keeping pace with CLG's ability to farm, despite all the roaming they've been doing.
Yeah.
It's rather impressive, and Shifter and Don't Mash Me are the ones who are going to have to capitalize on that, because they were the beneficiaries of the roam, and since the farm is equal, they're the only two people on the team that are actually much stronger than what COG has been able to accumulate.
So we'll have to keep a look on these guys and see what they're up to, because Doublelift now is going to make life a bit more difficult for Mash Me. He's frozen that bottom lane, so the rest of Coast have gone to the mid, but only Link is here to defend. However, that Orianna wave clear tends to be pretty strong. I don't know if Coast are going to get a lot more out of this one, and Tendu decides to go for the farm instead.
That's a very difficult lane for them to push, and that's a COG thing here. We can see Doublelift isn't increasing anyone on COG's ability on the map right now. He is actually a deterrent to COG right now while freezing that lane. It's going to turn into something better later, but because Doublelift is in bottom lane farming, Coast was able to take that advantage in the mid lane with the turret.
Beautiful stuff. Then 2-1 on turrets. Now 2,500 gold for these guys. Pit comes off on the Mackie. Will they go in? The Flay comes back. Looks like no kill, though. They don't want to dive this one.
Link is out of mana right now, which is why they could not try a Shockwave to turn that around, as well as Doublelift is still just farming. He's decided the lane freeze is over. He's shoving that up, and he actually has to get safe because there's a chance Coast could have went down for him.
You're right. There's no ward coverage, actually, for CLG on the right-hand side. Doublelift is going to recall back, but the pressure is still on this turret. Bubble does not quite land on a Chouster. True Shot Rush comes across. They're just keeping the turret alive, though, but now they've got to react to a big minion wave at the bottom side pushing towards them.
And this is just these teams battling with minion control against each other. We know COG's objective is not fight, because they don't want to deal with Zion Spartan stand united. Again, he went with the Spirit Visage and is going to have the cooldown reduction if Coast wants to try to turn anything in. Yet, right now, Zion Spartan's looks like he's using it reactively instead of Coast using it to go in for fights.
They haven't needed to, I suppose, because everything they've gone for, CLG's not defended it. Dragon they got without having to do anything. Mid lane they got because of the lane freeze. The Zion Spartans had the luxury of getting to stay in this lane. So this is all kinds of good for Team Coast as Zion, he's waiting around on the side. The bottom lane does get cleared out here. Yeah, Coast, I guess they can look again for a push pretty soon. They've got to worry about the mid lane. CLG are pushing in towards it.
If Nien keeps the pressure on Zion Spartan, then COG is safe pushing up past dead turrets. But as soon as Zion Spartan isn't close to Nien, that's when Coast is going to do stand united on top of Ahri ultimate and go for an initiated team fight. So there's a lot of emphasis on Nien's Zac to keep up close to Zion for a while.
And he's going to stay in that lane. You're seeing the minions not separate at all. Nien stacking health right here. Giant Spell and Ruby Crystal. Sure, Zion's got good regen with the Spirit Visage, but certainly you're not going to get rid of Nien anytime soon in those fights. And Coast, they're actually grouping up around the blue buff here. I feel like with their lead, they're looking for more things to steal away.
And I don't think COG has the tools to contest this. They have a ward up, but they're not willing to risk that Ahri initiation that could potentially just be tidal waved and bubbled by Daydream and Tsunami. This is right now a pretty sweet situation for Coast to be in. They're just going to have to find creative ways of getting COG out of their farm game.
And this is doing just so well, though, still for Coast. I mean, they are finding some openings every once in a while. They've now grown to 2,000 gold up there, and the red buff being taken. I want to see who it goes to, actually. If it's going to be, looks like it actually is just going to go to the jungler. So Don't Mash Me doesn't need it for the lane just yet. Only 14 minutes in. He's going to stay farming. There's a little bit of extra gank power for Nintendo with the slow. As ult comes across. Oh, he got it. He got it. Doublelift stole it. Doublelift, that was awesome.
That was pretty cool.
That was awesome.
True shot, one would say.
Yes, not a false shot right there. He definitely got blue. Great job. And of course, the early bloodthirsts are done as well. Before 15 minutes, you see him, he's got a really, really good minion score, honestly. 136 at 14 minutes or so. It's not bad at all. Certainly very high up there. So Double F still tends to be a big factor for CLG in these games. I don't think that surprises really anyone who's a fan of the team.
And he's went with that Bloodthirster variation on the blue Ezreal build. It turns it into the double lift Ezreal, I suppose, because he's not he's cheating. He doesn't have all blue items. He's going to try to make that one work, as he's actually got to run away now because Don't Match Me's on the charge.
Wow, he's already got Blade of the Rune King. Just jumps in on Chaucer, but here comes the pull.
Oh, this could be
not
bad.
Quite land. Here comes Shifter though on the side. Goes in, gets knocked into the air, but finds Chaucer. Now can he find Double? Good Arcane Shift gets him away. There comes the dunk as well from Jarvan. Flashes out, locks Shifter in, but the one kill was picked up. However, they have no minions to turn this one into anything else.
And Coast is trying to force CLG out of their farm lane, specifically Double Lift. But this is now giving CLG an opportunity, and they have to take it to get some of the turrets back.
And you're seeing the damage come down onto that one. Zion Spartan did use his ultimate, by the way, in that last battle. I don't think he showed... Am I just dumb and forgot where Zion Spartan went? He did use the ultimate, but I don't remember if he actually fought anyone.
He
in
was
that
bottom
battle.
lane. I don't think he made it in for much of a fight, but he was definitely trying to ult in.
Okay. So Zion there left to hold up the scraps on that very pushed top lane right there. And Coast, though, still the early mid-game leaders right here, 60 minutes in, have another dragon in front of them. They're going to take this one down. And the bubble lands, guaranteeing no steal. The charm as well. Will they keep going again? Cocoon lands, and they just pile in. Big bet LP falls down. You called it, Jat. CC into CC into CC.
And they're mostly single target CCs too. So if CLG can get into team fights, they're going to be able to abuse the Coast can only get one person at a time. But as long as CLG is playing this farm game, they're individually very vulnerable to getting locked down, which is why the game right now is so heavily in favor of Coast.
So a beautiful play then by Coast here to keep finding those openings, just tossing a bubble out, landing it, knocking in someone in the air. Nintendo had a really good one a while back onto Link. I do have to celebrate sort of the mechanical skill of these guys to land these max ring skill shots. When you're fighting
And
pros,
the timing too
yeah.
is very important.
Because the thing is, they're also both going to be in range at the same time. Like, no, I'll charm first. You wait, Nintendo dude. And it's just so cool to see. This is something that feels practice to these guys. And again, finding comps that work, practicing them, being prepared for them, so important.
And both these teams do have the full-time coaches. Elements for Team Coast, formerly of actually CLG, and then formerly of Team Curse. Hasn't been working out so well for Curse yet, but the team itself has a lot of faith, and they're saying they're losing for other reasons. So this is a practice thing. You're right.
Yeah, so beautiful stuff then. Turning themselves on at the very end of the split. You got to remember, though, we're at 2 weeks left here in the summer split, but each team has 8 games to play this weekend, and in 2 weeks when we have week 9 here. So you're going to see a lot of movement in the standings for the guys that got ready finally in the sort of 11th hour at the end of the split right here. TSM, CLG both feeling confident. Coast felt very confident. Cloud9, of course, obviously not slowing down. But here we go, a team with coordination, with a good team comp, making moves. It's very good for them.
And if any team knows how to come together late season, it already is Team Coast.
Yeah.
Because at one point last split, they were 2-12. Then they made it into the playoffs as the 6th seed, and then they finished the season in 2nd. So they've been here before, and they've done this. Right now, Coach is in 7th. So this game, as we said before, is so important for them, and they're starting off great.
They are absolutely doing wonderfully here. 4,000 gold in the catch on the double. If Repel comes across, Nintendo gets knocked into the air. The Spider leaves the Ignite. Oh, the barrier's so good from double. Will he survive? Nintendo has to dodge. Zion picks up a kill before the Lantern can land, but Nintendo's been locked up. There comes the Shine Ult. Will that be enough to keep him alive? Nintendo's been exhausted. Knocked into the air. He's going to go down. Zion Spartan lands the taunt, but he's been forced to run away. It's a 1-for-1. Finally, CLG picks up a kill.
And there is a very slow fight in the bottom lane, but a very fast push in the top lane here. Coast 3v1. Yen can't realistically go in for that, and CLG is in danger of losing a lot of their base here.
4 turrets have now gone down in Team Coast. What do they look for? Because Link actually will get a counter push here. The mid lane turret's going to go down, so CLG finds something. But look at Coast. They're controlling the jungle now. They stole the last blue buff. Now they're stealing this red buff. This is good for them.
Yeah, this is great to watch because Coast is putting such a heavy focus on 2 things right now. Pushing down turrets fast and stopping double lift as best they can. They're putting most of their resources into fights in the bottom lane and then pushing when CLG comes to support. What that's doing, though, is it's actually letting Link get going a little bit with his 176 farm on Orianna, we have to keep tracking this and see if all this play is worth it by Coast.
You're right. I remember pointing out some of the minion kill scores a while back where the AD carries were far and away above everyone else. While Shifter's been roaming, Link has caught up there. I just wanted to get the numbers out there to say, yes, he has been really growing by 30 or 40 at this point. Mash wearing the double red buff. Not super useful aside from the first one, but at least he can refresh the timer on that one.
Get one of those.
Yeah, I don't think they stack. I don't think it goes like to a deeper shade of red.
That'd be kind of cool.
Be interesting. Either way, though,
this is why we're not designers.
This is why we're not designers. You're at least kind of on live design.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Shifter though is going to be wearing a nice blue buff for this one. The last one, well, CLG's last one was at least taken by CLG, but Coast have taken 3 of the last 4 buffs now on the map, and they might use that for even more power. It seems like this is a team that keeps looking for fights.
And they need to push the tempo. They're doing a very good job of it so far. But at the same time, when COG does get a 5v5 team fight, if the map shrinks, it's still going to be a difficult thing for Coast to pull off. COG is most likely more ready if Coast were to do another 4 to 5 man push up the mid lane, and maybe then try to turn a fight around once that single target CC chain starts on somebody. If COG can let that chain get absorbed essentially by Zac, who's becoming a very tanky man, then the rest of COG's damage could break through and really wreak some havoc on Coast.
And it's fun to talk about that single target CC chain versus CLG's CC chain, because all their major players are area of effect based. Zac, Jarvan, Orianna, they'd love to get in a 5v5 and wreck people. So you're right, there's a lot of scariness available here in the team fight. So Coast, they've got to keep looking for these individual plays.
There is still a lot of emphasis on Coast to do well in this game. It's almost a more difficult composition to pull off when you're running such high risk, high coordination required single target CCs, and it means they have to continue to play well for the remainder of this game if they don't want to give up their lead.
And I think they know Doublelift's on the right-hand side right there if they wanted to look for a collapse. He's walking around some ward coverage. Twitch sneaking around towards the side. Nami as well. Zion Spartan keeps the end locked up. One of those big players. Big Fed up, he looks for it as well. Zion! Wow, that was Spidey senses. He jumped away from that one. Doublelift forced to Arcane Shift. Getting hit up by Twitch. Nice ward across the wall by Daydreamin'. No bubble, so no engage here. Coast right at the front door, but CLG are ready to defend.
And how well can CLG hold off this siege? They do not have a 1v1 answer entirely for Zion Spartan. CLG is torn right now as another dragon spawns, and Coast is going to be able to take that one, because CLG needs Nien to eat the single target CC chain, but they also need him to match up against Zion Spartan and stop him from teleporting in. So he can't be in both places at once, and it's giving Coast advantages.
And Zion Spartan, again, just with the pressure of being on the map, does give them the dragon, as you said. And you're right, the advantages are still growing. The gold lead now, more than 5,000. We keep track of that one. It was 1,800 with the very first dragon, now 5,000 with, I believe, the third dragon at this point. They're certainly getting themselves farther ahead. The 5v5 still something that intimidates them. You notice that they're not diving compared to what for example, like Cloud9 did, where they were diving and starting fights all the time as a 5v5 based team. Coast are taking a different approach to the game.
It's mainly because of how dangerous the dives are against CLG. We even saw in CLG's game against Vulcan last week, where CLG was down close to 10,000 gold near the end of the game. They'd stretched it out to about 40 minutes, and Vulcan tried one dive team fight in CLG's base, got 4-0'd, and then lost the game. So Coast knows how dangerous CLG can be late game, which is, I think, why they're not diving recklessly.
Chowster, though, he's trying to get some ward coverage. Can they get in range for a CC? Cocoon! It's going to land. They reveal him, but no one is quite there to follow up. Only 3 members of CLG were around. They actually wouldn't have gotten caught out too hard if they dived, but without a lot of information, nothing happens there. Doublelift, though, is going to get spotted by Zion Spartan. Zion sees him. Arcane Shift gets him away. Yeah, I think Ezreal's safe here.
I think so, too.
He's getting closer, actually. That was so close. At
the very least, he's not going to die.
That's true.
He is not at a point yet, though, Doublelift, where he can threaten Zion Spartan.
No. He walked at him through a minion wave.
Double needs at least 6,000 gold more. He needs to finish his Iceborne Gauntlets, which he just built the Sheen of, and then he also needs a last Whisper. This is the long haul for COG.
So 4K left for those 2 items then right now. Coast starting to control different parts of the map now as well. Now that we're 24 minutes in, it looks like they're starting to take ward control of the left-hand side jungle and the route to Baron.
And it's just in a matter of containing COG. And I don't know I don't know how willing Coast is to try a Baron against Big Fat OP because his track record of smites is so high.
But the catch comes off on a danger. This is not good for Nami, getting knocked around. Has to flash away. Still does not pop her ult. Finally does. The catch comes on. Shockwave hits no one, though. This could be the re-engage here for Coast.